Are you ready to say goodbye to the constant ups and downs of the artist income roller coaster? Whether you're a full-time artist who wants to increase and stabilize your income, a part-time musician who wants to go full-time, or a hobbyist who needs to fund your passion projects, this podcast will equip you with the tools, resources, and inspiration to make it happen. On the Profitable Musician Show, we give you practical tips and strategies to increase the income you're already making and tap into new streams so you can create more diverse, stable, reliable income from music and finally ditch the starving artist mentality. We also help you think like a business owner so you can keep more of the money that you make. My name is Bree Noble. I'm a musician, author of the best-selling book, The Musician's Profit Path, and host of the popular Profitable Musician Summit. And as you can probably tell, I am obsessed with helping musicians like you to build a rock-solid fan base and income foundation so you can fund the music you are driven to create, share your message with the world, and fulfill your God-given purpose as a musician without stressing out about where your next dollar is going to come from. You've got the talent. You just need the marketing and business tools to take it to the next level. Now let's dive into the Profitable Musician Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. My name is Bree Noble, and I'm excited to be here with Janis Shen of Wax Management. She has quite a background. She has worked with artists over the years. She's worked with record labels. She is an entertainment attorney. So we have a lot we can talk about today. So I want to start out, Janis, just by giving us a background for you in the music industry, how you got started, why you decided to go into the part of the music industry that you did, and kind of how you've moved through working through different parts of the music industry and with different companies and segments over the years to where you are now.
Thank you, Bree. It's an honor to be here. And I think I want to start earlier in my life because I am a musician as well. And I think it informs my whole experience in working in the industry. I played piano and violin. I started at the age of 4. I studied all through until I got to college, at which point I was also a writer as well. So I did writing and music. And ultimately, I chose writing and went to school for poetry as well. So that matters to me because, you may say, why did you end up being a lawyer? Right. And, it was just kind of a part of me had said, I have a lot of friends who are artists. I'm very much involved in the artist community, but I know that I have enough skills and analytical mind that I think that I could go into law and be helpful in the art world. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what I went to law school for. I decided that I was going to study entertainment. I was going to study intellectual property. And it was all about working with artists and helping them improve their careers. And while I was in law school, I went to NYU. So I was in New York already. And I I started interning. And I started interning at TVT Records in their legal department and ultimately ended up going in-house there. And that's for those who don't know, because TVT is closed now, it was a big independent label, well known for artists like 9 Inch Nails, Lil Jon. They did some projects. We did a bunch of projects with Snoop Dogg. We had all the Wax Tracks records as well, and it was a very vibrant, as a large independent. It was a very vibrant community, and I value my experience there so much because as a lawyer, I was able to work very closely with all the different departments. You just walk down the hall, you talk to the marketing department, you talk to the A&R department, you're working on the projects from the get-go. I was clearing all the features and everything. And that allowed me to have a much broader experience in the industry. And from there, I decided I wanted to understand the major label system. So I went to RCA Records, which was a lot different. Like the legal department was very much like, this is what you do. So I was glad that I had the perspective, of like understanding what these different departments do, working to artists, all of that, as well as understanding the perspective of a large company, So in time, I went into private practice. And while I was in private practice, I really enjoy working on the artist side. And so I've stayed there and I've maintained my practice as well. I'm currently a counsel at a law firm called Covey Law. But while I was practicing, one of my artists asked me to start out co-managing them. And I said, okay, I knew them very well. We had a really great relationship. And now, 15 years later, I'm still managing them, but I'm also now a partner in wax management, and we have a roster of, 10 other artists, and, we're enjoying like this great period of the industry, I think, where there's so much more freedom and so much more options for our artists, and so that's where I am today.
Interesting. So what are, just for my knowledge and anyone else out there that might be wondering, like what is the difference in what you do when you're managing an artist versus kind of doing the entertainment attorney side?
So the entertainment attorney side, let's start with that, is very deal oriented, right? We negotiate, but I do all the fine print. So I'm the closer generally. Like when a lot of times when I'm the attorney, the artist I'm working with also has management. The management comes to me and says, "We pulled in these partners. This company has interest. They want to put out an offer. I want you to talk with them." And then we refine all the deal points, and then I negotiate the deal, and then I basically negotiate and work on the draft of all the various documents. And then going forward, I'm working with the artists on clearances on, if they have a sample, if they have a featured artist, they have a producer, they have a mixer. Every single person that an artist is involved with pretty much needs a deal, including amongst band members, if it's a band, you know? So, but it's very paperwork oriented. It's like I'm down to this is it, this is the paperwork, and collecting the check. When I'm in the management position, it's a much broader role because you're developing the artist, you're coaching them, you're helping them with their independent marketing and helping them pull everything together. So you're a producer. For example, if they have to do a photo shoot or a video, production, you're involved, you're pulling all the people together with them. You also introduce them to labels and other kinds of business partners, and you develop that whole business relationship with them, and you live through the entire deal with them. So every time the artist is recording, you're helping them collect everything, get everything together. You're interfacing with the label. You're coming up with the label's plans of support. We're the sounding board for everything, and we're like I guess producers is a really good word for it on that level. And then we do the initial negotiation of all the different partners and the different people that are working with the artist. We get it down to like some basic points, and then we hand it off to the lawyer who does all the fine print. And so it's actually very helpful because as a manager, I already know what the fine print is. So I kind of like you get kind of a stepped up negotiation.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
already having seen so many deals and everything, like you know what to expect, you know what to ask for, that kind of thing. I think it would be super helpful to have a manager who also really understood the law side.
Yeah, and we position them. So I'll help our team from the get go, from the introduction. I'll look at it from the legal perspective and say, no, this will be more advantageous if you approach things this way or that way.
Mm. And when you say deals, that you're helping to work on deals, is that just like for record labels or distribution, or are there deals around like all kinds of different things as an artist?
Oh yeah, everything. I do, sync licensing deals, branding deals, personal appearances, everything that I guess I just call them all deals because it's like it's contract,
Mm.
but it's like it's a more colloquial, like people understand what that is. Whereas contract sounds really dry that,
No, deals sounds way
yeah.
cooler. Like I'm gonna get something out of this. Yeah.
Right, right. You're getting things done. Like every single step, you're trying to improve the artist's position. So
Yeah, and the thing I do love about, like, the manager relationship, obviously, there's the mentorship and stuff, but, like, they have a stake. Like, usually, if it's set up that way, they have a stake in the artist doing well. So it's like they're incentivized to make the best deals that are going to help the artist because it's only going to help them. So how do you, as a manager, kind of help the artist to think of what they do as a business and how to set themselves up in the best possible position financially?
So, I want to talk about initially the artist mindset, right? Because an artist, a lot of times they're like, well, I'm just the artist. I don't want to, I don't want to do business. And the
Mm,
thing is, if you are an artist that has ambitions, you're in the business, whether you know it or not.
yep.
You know what I mean? So you're just out there and you're like swimming with sharks, but you don't know they're in the water, right? So I want them to understand what they have. And that's not only the copyrights, I'll be like the masters that you have in the publishing, and I'll explain to them all the different streams of income that you can get from your rights, right? You have the right to, you can sell your master, or you can just distribute it. You can get an administration deal of your publishing, or you can do a co-publishing deal and sell it. And the rest of it is a lot of understanding timing, where you're at, what your business is today versus what your business is and our goals are for you over the next 10 years, And then we can unpack that a little bit more. But on the financial side, I always think of things as cash flow. So when we're doing different types of deals, sometimes you have an advance, and that means that you have to wait a while before you get your next check because you're recouping. Somebody has paid you in advance against royalties. So they've paid you in advance for X number of sales that they anticipate that you're going to make. And until you reach those X number of sales, you're probably not going to get the next check for that because they've already paid you upfront. So our thing is to think very carefully about what you do with that money up front,
Mhm.
for one. The second thing is there's more than one deal to be had, right? So the funding sources are from different sources. So we offset it. We try to make sure that you have cash flow from one. If you're taking in advance, we're building another business on the other side where you're getting cash flow. And what's really interesting about the current state of the industry is that now certain distribution deals will do a pass through, which means that they will give you cash flow. You don't have to wait for 100% of your advance
Mm.
to be recouped. You'll still get something every month because an artist is very concerned, especially early on, about I've got bills, I've got monthly payments, I can't put a total stop to that cash flow. I'm not used to planning in advance, far in advance for my expenses, right? But we've been able to get deals where you can still have some funds coming through every month. And that's a fairly new way of operating in the industry. And I think it's really helpful for artists.
Oh, yeah, especially if artists are not used to managing their finances, especially if they're younger artists. They
Yeah.
haven't even really worked a job yet. Like, they're not used to having
Yeah.
to manage their finances. So I'm sure that could be really helpful for them.
Yeah. And we'll sit with them and map out. We'll tell them as many times as they need, to understand it. Like, this this deal will get you through this amount of time. We're going after these other things so that they can help you in the meantime. We're going to, like, for example, like, set up a merch store. That's real time funds, or we're getting you on touring and shows, and you're not going to be, if we can think of your entire business as a whole, you shouldn't be at a place where your money is stuck. We want them to feel secure. We want them to know that they're going to be able to pay their bills, while they're building their industry, right?
Yeah, to be fair, it's really hard to be like creative and work in flow when you're like trying to create new music and stuff like that if you're stressed out about bills.
Yeah. And then, of course, if they get to a certain level where it makes sense and, the fees are reasonable, then we recommend an accountant or business manager, who will help them. They can even recommend investments and all that kind of thing. But we, we're really trying, we try not to, we don't pry as management, we're like, look, this service is available to you, but
Hmm.
I'm not going to totally insert myself, into your finances unless you're open to that, because I don't push them around like that. I always want the artist to feel like they trust that we're looking at their best interests and we're going to meet them where they are, you know.
Right. Now, you hear stories, especially with major labels, about the artist really not having control over the expenses. It's like, oh, they gave them an advance, but then the record label, we're spending this much money on marketing and we have to recoup that before we pay you any more. And I found that so frustrating because it's like, it's really the artist's money that they're spending and the artist
Right.
has no control over that. So how do you mitigate that?
So we actually, and again, I really feel like in the current industry, we have a lot more freedom.
Hmm.
So we talk very closely with the label. We have a sense of what they're spending. A lot of times we are able to get a deal where only a certain amount of marketing costs are recoupable. So it's not everything. We have like different sources within the label and I think a lot of that, this is where managers are important and how who you're working with can be important. If they know that we're watching and we know everything, they're like, you know, meeting us as partners. You know what I mean? Like we're not signing to them and saying you just do whatever. We're totally reliant on you. They know that we're coming to the table with something, and so that's how we have a little bit more oversight and insight into what's being spent.
Thank goodness.
And I also budget in advance. Like I negotiate all the producer deals and stuff, right? So I have a chart and I'll be like, this is your recording budget. This is how much we can spend, and I try to like keep it under control.
Right. How do you decide what the budget should be? Like, especially if it's a new artist, right? Like, how bootstrapped should they be in the beginning and not using like famous producers and big studios and all that stuff for their like first album? How do you decide like what's worth investing on this artist on the front end?
Definitely when they're younger and their budgets are small, you want to be careful, right? You want to be careful who you're working with. It's a bit nuanced, right? Because a lot of artists come to us and they have friends. They're working with a producer and the producer's their buddy. And it's, like they have kind of an arrangement there. So we know that we're like, the producer's not going to overcharge. There's something going on there. But we're also like, okay, as you grow, you want to expand. And so we'll put them in writing sessions with people. If
Mm.
they really hit it off, I think that there's still this piece of the industry where art is an artist to artist relationship. And we have a frank conversation with that person's team and say, this is all we've got. A lot of times, if they're like, we love it, they'll still do it. I mean, I'm just saying that I can't guarantee that, but there's a relationship piece of this whole thing. And I still think that a lot of people in the industry are here just because they love the music.
Oh, I agree. I agree. And
Yeah.
people are willing to do more for a thing that they really believe in. And it's less about, what's on paper.
Yeah. When they get to the point where things are really growing and you think, you could really step up, you can work with we know that even if they give us a break, this producer is going to be really expensive.
Mm.
We have a talk with them and we have a talk with the label and we get more funds. And, usually, the label team will look at it and go, yeah, but I really think that we're going to get to this point if we work with this person and we put out a song, and so sometimes it's worth it. And it's not always an egregious number,
Mm.
you know?
So then let's say, you're ready to grow. Like you're an artist, you've done your first album or two, you've got a manager. Like how do you decide who to add to your team and when? And I'm assuming the manager has a lot of input on this.
Yeah. I think though that they have to figure out like who their manager is going to be, right?
Mhm.
And just to start there, the manager has to understand you. The manager has to share your vision and where you can be and like understand where you're at. And and know that where you're at can also change and your mind can change, but like they're in the trenches with you, right? And you want somebody who's open-minded and willing to talk through everything, because that's the manager that's going to really, like, you want them to caretake your business, right? And then I do think it's helpful if the manager knows a lot of people and
Mm.
has been around and has a lot of connections, because they get, like, you get a little bit of extra information, if you have, right? Or you're able to call somebody on the phone and they pick up, and so that is helpful too. So then the manager is basically, I describe it as like a bicycle wheel, or the hub in the middle with them. And as we pick, it's kind of a similar process of picking what label and what publisher to work with. You got to start with, does the team understand you? Do they know what to do with your music? Is another way to put it. They hear it and they're like, oh, this is great. I've already got ideas. I can think this person's going to love it. I should take it to this brand. I should pitch it to this music supervisor. That's very helpful. If they're willing to have a back and forth conversation. Like, people who present you with a deal and say you take it or leave it, I'm like a little bit like, okay, we should be able to talk through this deal. You know what I mean? So that kind of relationship that you have to have with your label, and then, as somebody in the industry, there are certain people that I already know. So I'm like, okay, great. I can, like, I know that I basically have vetted a bunch of teams and have been, like, really impressed with certain label teams, and tend to, like, continue to do business with them. And there's also a certain amount of just continuously meeting new people, because we are always looking for innovative thinkers, effective at executing, responsive teams. And sometimes you'll find a startup and they're just like, you know move fast on their feet. It all depends on the artist. It depends on the artist, and we just try to vet things in a way where we know, and the artist is along for the ride. It's not like we're just talking to people without the artist. The artist gets to go to meetings, feel people out, see if they really connect with somebody.
Yeah, but it helps to even have a starting point because the manager already has these relationships. Like an artist, they tend to not have any. And so they would really not
Hmm.
even know where to start, or like, maybe they would not know to not even go down this path because they don't have enough
Right.
information, so that's a really, really
Right.
helpful thing with the manager, is just having those connections. And even just that experience of being like your experience, being in the industry for so long, seeing it from the different angles is
Yeah.
so helpful for the artist, because the artist only sees it from their angle usually.
Right. And I can tell you, this is how they're thinking. This is why they want to make this decision. This
Mm.
is why they're recommending something. I always tell them, like, there is a reason for most everything, and we're happy to explain it to you. Like, it's not just like, oh, I just think this is a great idea. Just do it. And I think as a manager, that is also something that I want to know. Like, I want to make sure that whoever is I'm talking to has a reason for what they're, proposing, right? Because then we can hash it out and say and decide whether or not it's a good idea or not. But if they're just kind of like throwing things out there, I'm like, mm, maybe you didn't think that through. you know?
Yeah. What do you think about a very new artist? Who's the first person they should have on their team? Like, should it be the manager, or maybe they should start out with just a VA to help them get things done faster? But then, like, does the artist really know how to hand things off to the VA? I'm always like encouraging artists this way to, like, you need to try to get rid of some of the things on your plate that other people could do, because there are so many things as an artist that only you can do, like perform and record and write and all of that. So what is kind of the path that they should take when they start out as just them, single artist?
I think that managers are important, right? They're helpful and very important. If there's like a sub step though, like if you can't get a manager right away, because that's a big investment, right? Like,
Mhm.
of time and energy, then I would actually look at social media, like, assistance, like
Mm.
somebody who will help you and this could be a peer, but somebody who will help you hone your social media campaign of your own, because that is such a huge piece of the industry now.
Mm.
And that is something that at the initial stages, only the artist can really do. And it is helpful to have somebody who can look at the artist, take a step back and say, oh, I think you could do this or that, or you should, maybe you should be posting, X number of times and, changing around your filters and changing around your content. Somebody who can explain to them how the different platforms work.
Right. And even like
So
angles and messaging that they should use to really, stand out on social media and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah. Like I think that kind of like as managers, we do that kind of coaching. We have someone on our team who specializes in a lot of the digital marketing as well, and we do the social media. But if you just can't get like the big team right away, having somebody like that, or even just a creative group of friends, is helpful. You know, like somebody that you can have ideas and bouncing back and forth. It's the start, like
Yeah.
the very bottom initial.
It's a good idea. And sometimes we just, if we're like totally alone, we feel utterly overwhelmed, right? So if we had somebody helping with at least one of the pieces, or at least generating ideas so we didn't feel like we had to do it all ourselves, I think that could be helpful. I think there is kind of this catch-22 with the needing a manager, in like when you first start out, you have no money coming in, so you have nothing to offer them. Like, why should they come onto your team? But but yet you can't scale until you have help. So like, how do you get around that kind of catch-22 situation?
The other piece that maybe could help them to make them more attractive for management to step in is doing shows,
Hmm.
right? And you should start off reaching out to venues, reaching out to other artists. You should start out reaching out to other artists and saying, can I open for you? Get a little bit of that in front of you, because there are independent agents that are really great who just have a vision and work in the underground. The underground is pretty important, for an artist being a community is important. When you talk about, let's for the audience, let's just say that when you say that when I say it's a big investment, when you're saying it's a big investment for managers to come on board, it's because we work on commission, right? And the way that I structure as a lawyer, I've negotiated a lot of management deals. So I've structured our management deal to be like to like walk the line and try to be fair to both parties, right? But generally speaking, we don't make money unless the artist is making money. Like we've agreed to basically stand in their shoes for the most part. And so we know that it could be a year before we ever get paid, right? So our businesses, we have, just to give you an insight into what a management business can be or how it's run, we have higher marquee artists, right? So we're working that where we are able to keep our business open, like we're building these higher marquee artists. We have a layer of developing artists. This is artists who have a few 100,000 streams, for example. So we're able to like get them some deal, distribution deals, that kind of thing, and bring in some independent marketing for them at that level. But we are just now, like I said, we are still music lovers. So I actually have an artist where we're just like, I just love you. You have like 50 streams, I just love you and want to work with you. And I'm like, I might be crazy, but I still did that, like we still have done that. So, that's also just a piece of things, right?
I
And
actually
I can't
love
say
to
that
hear
every,
that. I
yeah,
love, our audience is going to love to hear that, because it's like, there's all these other numbers and, vanity metrics and all of that stuff. But like, there's still a piece that's like just about the music. Like if someone just absolutely loves your music, they might be willing to take a chance on you.
yeah. I mean, I really think that's still alive in the industry. And like you look at how many people still want to get into the industry. I'm like, okay, I started out as a musician, so that's why I'm here. And most of the people in the industry started out as musicians, or some have some kind of love for the art, huge fans. So I guess, in the beginning stages, before you feel like, you can start talking to people, before you are basically able to meet somebody, you gotta, maybe have a friend help you with coordinating things, just like to take some things off your plate if that's possible. The other thing is that people do look on the internet for artists, but like then you're still worried about getting your stream. So that's why I'm saying put yourself out there. Just be there and understand that different platforms work in different ways. So that's a really important distinction. Like I still think that TikTok is the discovery platform,
Hmm.
meaning that you're still on TikTok and things pop up that you've never seen before. Whereas if you're on Instagram, it's kind of like a gated community and it's like not that easy to find new stuff, you know? So, and TikTok for a long time has been the main platform where you translate to Spotify. Like people actually go off the platform and go to Spotify and discover an artist. They have a new feature in Instagram that has a little bit of ability to look at Spotify directly from the app now. So we'll see what happens with that. That's a really cool tool. But you know that they should like try to understand how each app works and like that helps you figure out how to like maximize the app itself. But don't give up because your first post is going to have like 4 views, you know, like don't worry about it, you know? That's just because nobody sees it until, you know, you pick things up, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious about this because I am a huge fan of live music. I think every artist, if possible, should be performing live. And you just mentioned that, like, that's how you can get to know other artists and collaborate and be seen and all that. Do you actually manage completely digital artists? And what are the challenges around that?
I do manage artists that are rappers. Like, so they came from the SoundCloud scene.
Hmm.
They are off of TikTok. We had some of the early big TikTok themes. We found them during COVID. So, I mean, or we found them and then COVID hit. So, like, they basically had maybe one show and
Right.
that was it. Right. So, for a while there, it was just living on the internet. And it was interesting, but they would just they did a lot of innovative content. You know, they got their friends in their backyard with an iPhone or a camera and just did a bunch of stuff and just kept going. And you know, they did a lot of work on TikTok, but they did Instagram, YouTube. You know, you have to focus on everything. They didn't tour for years, actually. But they built their following and they have an international following, which is so interesting. And then by the time you toured, we're like, oh, we're going to book you in Europe too, you know, or you're going to go to Japan or Australia, New Zealand. I mean, it was like, it was actually, I think very beneficial for them to kind of build this international or just, you know, there are no borders, right, on the internet. So to
That's right.
build just their community.
Do you think that they could just continue building their community online only, or do you think that they're missing out on a huge piece of the income pie if they don't perform live? I know there's some artists that don't want to perform live. They just want to make music in their bedroom.
You are missing out on a piece of income, potentially a huge piece of income. That
Mm.
is true. I have an artist that doesn't want to perform live, and they just have to understand and accept that they're missing out on a huge piece of income, right?
Mhm.
Because, like, look, I'm not going to force you in front of people if you're severely uncomfortable, you know, because that's also not going to sell tickets, you know, or you know what I mean. Like, you gotta take care of your mental health. You have to take care of your art.
Yeah. Have you had anyone that
Yeah.
they'll perform, but they only want to perform on like live streaming or, private online concerts, that kind of thing? They don't want to travel.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely have something like that.
And that works for
It's
them.
limiting. You
Yeah.
know, it's very limiting. It is, you know. So we have to seek I mean, essentially their business has kind of transformed a little bit more to being like an influencer.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good
It's
segue because I did want to ask, like, how do you encourage your artists to build like their online communities or build like kind of fan communities around themselves?
interaction is a really key component. So, and I understand that it's not for everybody. They're not always comfortable with this. But if you do talk to your fans and you talk to other artists, you pop into their feed, compliment, you know, say something about people that you want to work with, you can pop in and like comment on their posts on Instagram, you know, respond and definitely respond to people a little bit more than just a heart, you know, like actually have a conversation that means a lot. Like just building a real sense of community means a lot.
Yeah. And we
Yeah.
have so much unprecedented access now,
Hmm.
right? I think some people feel like stressed out and oppressed by it because they feel
Yeah.
like they need to do it, but they forget what an incredible opportunity it is.
For the people who are uncomfortable. And I have artists who they go in and out of being comfortable and then uncomfortable. I try to help them find a framework that just works for them because you don't want to necessarily show the world everything about yourself, right? Some artists are comfortable talking about anxiety. Some artists are too anxious to talk about anxiety. Like you're like, no. So, so you find a way, find that one comfort moment for you. Like if I am somebody who is really great at crafting, like they play every instrument and they'll do a live performance of a song or a clip of a song where they'll build the whole song and like loop things. It's super cool. And you
Mm.
don't have to talk to anybody as you're not talking to the camera. You're like, I'm building this thing and I'm sharing my art with you. And then you can comment, thank you, to all the comments in your video. But that could be like a piece of the content that you create that you're comfortable with, you know? And then some hobby or something that, that's you're not always selling yourself. You want to make sure you're not always just selling yourself. Because authenticity, like people really understand authenticity through the internet, like the users know. So, you can share like a hobby or you be excited about something like a game that you just got, and or a sport that you're into. Like you can just post little things that are like glimpses of your life, but you don't have to show them everything.
Yeah, and I mean, to come full circle, I think this is where a manager is helpful because they can help you get out of your own head. They can help you think outside of the box. They can help you figure out what you can share that's not going to feel too uncomfortable for you and give you ideas. Because so many times we get stuck in our own head and we're not able
Mhm.
to kind of decipher all the things that are causing us angst and seeing them from a different way. Well, you could do this, you could post this, and oh, I didn't even think about that. So I think that's where having like a partner in your business, which a manager is, can be really helpful.
Yeah, we try to be a sounding board,
Hmm.
and we can see things in the artist that they don't see in themselves, right? And all of us humans are like that, right? So then we're somebody who can say, oh, but you're really great at this thing, or I love this unique aspect about you, and people would like to hear about it, maybe lean into that.
Exactly. We take so many things for granted about ourselves and we're like, oh, that's
Yeah.
boring. No one would care about that.
Yeah. 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 I'm like, oh, you like golf. There are
Right.
tons of bands who like golf. That's cool.
Yep, totally. Well, okay, is there anything else that you want to tell any artists, aspiring artists, artists that are maybe ready or looking for a manager while you're here?
I'd love to leave people with this. You want to own the business so that you understand what you're in. And then you can like put it in if you build your team, you can put it in a drawer. You don't have to focus on it all the time. You can still be an artist, right?
Mm.
It's not mutually exclusive. And keep an open mind. I have I've encountered artists who are just like, "Oh, I would never work with this company because that's selling out." Or, it's just I'm like, these are all impressions that you got out of like kind of nowhere. So, you know, just take the meeting. Talk to people. If people show an interest in you, just take the meeting and hear what they have to say. It's better to just kind of know all of your options. It's and to consider a wide range of information because there's also a lot of misinformation out there, so, that's really important.
I think that's good
Um,
because there is a lot of preconceived, you can get these preconceived ideas about things or beliefs because of something that you saw that happened in the past or whatever. And maybe you didn't have all the information or the wrong information. And so you can like cut off possibilities just because of like subconscious beliefs. So also having that other person in your corner can help you see past those things.
yeah, yeah. And I think finally, like, if you're interested in somebody or, You can also ask for an informational interview
Mm.
and just be like, can we have coffee? I'm an independent artist. I would just like to talk. I think there are plenty of people in the industry who would be open.
I think that's a little like intimidating for artists because they think, well, I
Yeah.
have to waste their time and who am I to ask their time and that kind of thing. So it's good to hear that from somebody that's a manager. Well, how can people get in touch with you?
You can email me at Janis, Janis, at Wax Management, waxmgmt.com.
Okay. And are you guys on social media at all?
We are. We have we're on Instagram.
Under Wax Management?
Yeah, under Wax MGMT.
Great. Well, this has been really helpful. I appreciate you being able to offer all these different experiences and angles on the music industry for artists because we often don't get to see things through all these lenses. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on, Bree. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thanks for listening to the Profitable Musician Show. I would love to know your takeaways and aha moments from this episode. Leave me a comment over at profitablemusician.com so I can bring you more of the information, interviews, and resources that you love. Thanks to Rondi Fay, one of my Academy members, for providing the music for our podcast. You can check her out at rondifay.com. That's RANDIFAY.com. Just remember, knowledge is power, but without implementation, it is useless. And inspiration without action is merely entertainment. But I know you're not just a dreamer, you are a doer. And I promise I'll be here every week to support you and remind you that you can be a profitable musician.